transportation and roads, obviously looking at it from an average man-boat perspective, looking at it from a trucking perspective, and then looking at it from the roads perspective. So, questions I'm open to, otherwise I can start. I want to start a little bit with technology, and maybe this is to Jordan, just in terms of, the presentation that you talked about, some of the advancements that Hardwine is looking at in terms of a combination of safety, efficiency, and how important really technology is starting to play within the trucking industry in terms of delivery, specifically of goods and services that you do.
Yeah, that's a good question, Chuck. That's a great question, Chuck. I think it all comes down to compliance and discipline. If you don't have the technology in place, it's too easy to cheat the system for, even as leaders of companies, we don't tolerate that. But when you're driving processes down, to again, it all comes down to discipline. When you're driving processes, compliance down to hundreds, thousands of employees, you got to have the mechanisms. Just put it even down. Lights off. We want to turn that one off. Try this again. So ultimately, compliance, when you're driving it down to hundreds and thousands of employees, you need the mechanisms in place that are going to ensure there's no cheating in the system, ways to monitor, manage it. It's always, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And the new technology makes things so easy to measure and manage with compliance and a lot of the metrics, and that's hard braking, hours of service, equipment utilization, idle times, all that type of stuff. It's just critical having that in place, and it benchmarks it, and it's on your desk the next morning how we did the day before.
I wonder if you can just, Volker's presentation, he talked a lot about the importance of safety as well, and your truckers are one of the main users of a lot of the highways. Talk about it from the perspective of a truck company as well.
Yeah, you got to put the safety. Safety's always got to be first. One thing that Gargoyle does on Highway 6 is we do run a lot of long combination vehicles, especially Rockies up to Thompson. And we want to do that to A, reduce our carbon footprint, B, reduce cost on that freight, because you're burning approximately an extra 29% fuel by using one tractor to pull two trailers up. And even though it's harder to pass those vehicles, and they got to drive slower in the winter, and they're a longer unit to pass, it's just pivotal that you have that.
You want to touch on that, Volker?
Absolutely. I think we made it very clear that we really are not against certainly what's going on in the truck industry. We realize the importance of bringing economic development and bringing freight to the north at the best possible price. So it's not a concern the truckers now. I was told, I don't know if this is right, maybe it's going to help with this. I think maybe Dr. Ernst mentioned is that Highway 6 is the only double-lane highway in all of Canada that the Rocky Mountain levels are allowed, as opposed to Trans-Canada, which is 4-lane divided, or let's say Edmonton to Calgary, double-lane divided. Are you aware of that? Is it something?
Yeah, the Rocky Mountains, we can run those on the 16 as well, on the Yellowhead. So again, it's awareness, it's training of those drivers. All our trucks are governed in 97 to really make sure speed is governed and that is managed. So it's training, compliance, online tools, governing of the trucks, and ultimately getting out in the field. Us being out there and doing audits and being on the highway and seeing these things is pivotal. When drivers know that you're doing that type of stuff, it really forms behavior.
I think Dr. Prentice had a question. I have a question for Doug. With regard to the winter roads, I noticed you had the season runs from mid-January to mid-March. Well, we seem now to be getting a week in the middle of January or so, or in February, it's really warm. How does that affect the winter roads and the operations thereof?
Yeah, any of the warm spells could definitely be a challenge on the land. Something to note is like winter roads over ice, there may be the last freeze, last freeze, but they're also last thaw out. So it's not really our ice's problem. The biggest problem is like over creeks and rivers. Once we hit springtime and a little bit of warm weather, the creeks want to flow. Again, southern Manitoba, you think all the rivers are frozen all winter, but up in the north they're not. There's lots of water flowing. So those warm spells start to release water, and really it's the creeks that are a problem. That slows things down. As long as we got the snow cover on the road, generally it doesn't melt. In those spells, we do restrict traffic sometimes. Like the transport trucks are only to travel when it's -6 or colder. The road is technically closed for big trucks, -5 and warmer. So yeah, short spans of it are usually a problem. There might be a delay in some of the freight going for a bit. But ultimately it adds to, again, these creeks and rivers that want to flow. And that's where our goal is, to increase more bridges to get across. We've gone from over ice mostly to over land. And over land was basically finding the least resistance, right? Like anything, like a rail or anything. Well, that least resistance is a lot of times swamps, which can work okay. But what we're looking at is getting into high ground. So even if it's still a winter road, we're on high ground. Now that can, technically, you can run maybe 3 months of that if you've got proper crossing. So we come out of Auction House to 373. Most of that is on high ground. And literally with a few more bridges in there, that road could go for 3 months of the year. Again, every year is a bit different with temperature. Again, the lake crossings aren't really a big problem. Places like Pungazi are, because that's 400-foot deep lake, and family lake, fishing lake. It doesn't freeze till Christmas, so we have a warm fall, and also too in November and December. If it's warm out during that time, the water temperature, the ground temperature doesn't get cold. When it does turn cold, it still takes a while. If we get a cool fall, as soon as it gets frozen, boom, we've got frozen ground, and then we can build ice and build land and stuff like that. So short-term temperature swings aren't really a big deal, other than, like I say, kind of promotes everything starts to flow, things want to roll. And when it does go into spring, it's going to happen pretty quick, so we can't keep the road any longer. So we basically keep it open as long as it's safe to get down and for it to get out. We have to make sure that any trucks that we do have open that get in and public can get themselves out. Plus there's some creek crossings, like again, temporary culverts that get put in. Environmentally, we have to take them out by the end of the season, so we have to make sure we can get through. So our goal, or my goal, is to have permanent culverts, permanent bridges, highland to highland, getting across those wet zones. We are lining off poor areas.
In the summertime, you showed a lot of boulders. Are you removing those boulders? Does that help?
Sometimes, yeah. It just sort of smooths things off. Again, the snow does the leveling of the land. Driven up Auction House at 15 kilometers an hour when there's no snow. It's pretty tough. So yeah, the snow gives us the level ground to drive on. But again, you want the right amount of snow at the right time, and everything else will be perfect.
Doug, are we seeing a decrease in the length of time for winter roads on an annual basis? Is that changing, or is it?
Well,
I know last year there was a bit of a call from some of the First Nations communities in the province as well, saying we need year-round roads. Like,
yeah,
the roads are just not reliable.
December last year was warm, that helped it off. Fortunately, we had a cold February, March. We ran right till the end of March. It's actually the last 2 years in a row. Usually done in the south about mid-March and then about the 23rd, see the end of the northern part. But last year we ran right till almost April. Again, if you get the right conditions, we keep the roads open for quite a while. So again, with getting away from these bad areas that like to flood right away, we get a detour, get a bridge across, something different. Now that worst area is taken care of. We keep the roads open longer. So they're not really open any shorter. It's just that we make improvements to take away those spots that interrupt us going along.
Right. So So those are improvements that are year over year, will, as climate change goes, be less impacted as a result.
Yeah, there's 2,400 kilometers of roads, like I said, dozens of bridges. If there was 100 more bridges out there, it would just make it that much better.
One of the things you raised in your presentation as well that I thought was extremely interesting was just the use of technology in terms of using the sonars to be able to determine the depth of ice and the best way to navigate as well. Can you talk a little bit about, in your time with the department, this technology used obviously from a safety perspective, for better roads, all those different elements? What did they do in the past?
Well, we would do across Island Lake, it would be a 15-kilometer route, and 3 people would drill ice for 8 hours. Today, that's 1 person in that truck in 2 hours. So that's a factor of 10 or whatever, basically. And then we can cover more ground, get more tested. The drilling, of course, is intermittent. It's like a sample. You can't drill every inch, but with the ground penetrating radar, the GPR, we do get a signal every meter. So you've got something there. Now, you're not picking out every little bits and pieces. Again, it's the average of it.
When did we start using that technology? How new is that technology?
It's been around for a while. We were using it, I've been in this for 18 years. We were using it back then. It's in the last 10, 12 years that now we use GPR most exclusively. Again, if you got a short crossing as wide as this room, we'll just drill the ice. Anything across lakes and more. We use that. Again, we can get results quicker, which means we can upgrade the roads quicker because the industry is asking when, okay, you've got so much going on there, when can we get full loading? Because you've got a load you can't divide up, let's say. And then the sooner we can get that information out, get it published, and then the industry can get it called.
So then when I watch ice road truckers and they put the drama in that they're going to go through the ice, that's more for TV and it's not reality in terms of, okay, that's good to know. That's good to know. That's good to know. We've got some questions in the audience, I think.
Yes, there. I'm up in Lynn Lake and no stream to the winter roads and driving quite often. My question's for Doug with some interagency communication with the infrastructure department. We have the Kinnasale Road north of Lynn Lake that's supposed to be an all-season road, but the last few years they've closed the north end for local traffic only. And driving that winter road, I know that 50 kilometers north of Lynn Lake is one of the narrowest, scariest pieces of road, and it seems no-brainer. You get on it all year round, why it doesn't get widened and improved for all that truck traffic in the winter.
Yeah, it's something I do bring up as well. Just by the title, I get a lot of calls. It's winter and there's roads, so we're gonna call, right?
Makes sense.
Honestly, it's outside of my jurisdiction, but it is something I've brought up. And we do pass along and try and work with it again. It's not in our budget to work with, but I think there's more to be done in a lot of places that lead up to these winter roads and stuff.
Another question?
Hi, I just have a question, and I'm not sure if it's a fair question, but I'll ask anyways, related to the first part of the morning when we talked about the dream, the maritime province and exporting through the Churchill port. Then we are talking about now the reality, the conditions of the highway and the winter roads. How do we foresee development of these highways in relation to achieve those dreams? If this is what we are talking about today, how are we going to achieve that dream? Because I'm guessing a far more superior network will need to be developed. Even though we are talking about railway, there will be trucks going, there will be other hundreds and thousands of people will be traveling up and down. Trucks will be going and bringing the product. How do you foresee unfolding that? And how does this highway network become part of the conversation?
Who wants that one?
Well, something I'll tell you is we've 2,400 kilometers. We run about a $10 million budget. We're talking about under $5,000 a kilometer for a winter road per season. If you're looking at $2 million a kilometer for construction, that's 400 years of winter roads. build. So obviously I'm an advocate for the winter roads, but there needs, again, continuous improvement in the system. Take what you can with the traffic, again, if it's a bridge over some falls that's required, you take the worst, like what we do on the winter roads, you take the worst areas and make improvements there. Doesn't mean you neglect others, but then, certain areas may have a little less service, like say the Kinsale Road, being narrow and stuff. Improvements are needed where the traffic is and where the demand is. So.
And I think one of the things that the department is doing now as well is longer-term planning on infrastructure projects, knowing, and I think the minister mentioned it today, about the investment that's going to be made in Highway 6. I think that does provide, and in 283 as well, provides a longer-term look, which is from an economic perspective, knowing when some of these roads are going to be addressed. You can't do them all at once. I think we all recognize that.
But the seasonal way of winter roads, it's always been kind of traditionally kind of thought of as a one-off, right? Year by year by year, and that's something that's happened in the last couple of years. That's really thankful for. Is we got a bigger picture. Like even the last provincial budget had an increase of $1 million to include the north-south road back from Barrett River up to St. Tracy's Point. The road was off the system for a few years. It's now back on, and again, a bigger, longer-term picture, especially when it comes to bridges and structures. A lot of these are going up in all-season road areas as well. There's a lot of talk, a lot of studies of all-season roads. Again, that's not in my jurisdiction, but what we're doing is we're putting winter roads, getting them off the worst areas, and putting them on high ground that is a location for all-season. It's not like we're going to build a road here, and 10 years from now there's going to be another one. So.
We got a question over there, then we're up against it as well. So I think this is probably going to be the last one. I know there's more discussion that's going to take place. We've still got another day. So you got more time. So we're going to do one more because we still got a couple speakers left before the end of the day.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So Harrison Brand, First Nations Waste Organization. And we work with 8 or so Winter Road First Nation communities. We support the waste management programs in these communities to remove legacy waste and biodegradable recyclable materials along the Winter Road. So trucks come in, drop supplies off, and we fill them up. Our waste management crews in these communities fill them up, ship them back down to the proper processors in Winnipeg. So that's just kind of the context I'm coming at this from. So climate change is creating a lot of urgency, threatening to shorten the winter road season in a lot of these communities. That's undeniable. But we're also seeing things like wildfires, a lot of evacuations we saw this summer. So there's an urgency to get trucks in and out of these communities as quickly as possible. And I'm just wondering how we can collectively, as a group, better balance the urgency to get materials in as fast as possible, but also the urgency to get materials out. Things like tires, paints, aerosols, all these hazardous wastes. We need to protect community lands, waters, and air. And just wondering, how you see how we can better improve that relationship to kind of do both.
Yeah, looking at I'll take the first part of this and just kind of look at how do you get trucks in and get stuff in and get it out quick on a limited and shortened season. Again, it's having enough qualified drivers and having the supply and demand and meeting the ebbs and flows in the volume. You see a big swell in the demand when that winter road season is on, and you gotta pay take when the sun shines, both for the consumer and for ourselves. And we understand we're lifelines to these communities, and it's just bolstering up the resources for a really short period of time, and we're taking steps each year to do that and to bring subcontractors on and that type of stuff to really drive more volume through. And I'm sure Doug can add to this.
We see a lot of times, most of it is one-way, obviously tankers, that type of thing, but for example, St. Tracy's Point, they've got a car pressure, right? And so there's, there should be backhauls coming out of the communities from that. And we hear the same thing now because we talk to the industry all the time. And the communities, I talk to all the northern chiefs, they call me personally sometimes, and I always say that, like push to get your stuff hauled. Like, I refuse to believe there's not capacity in the province to get all these things hauled in 8 weeks. Like how many trucks can you put on a road? You know, a lot of times there's 40, 50 trucks on a road. You can put 500 on a road that can take it, you know, on the right temperatures. So I believe the industry has the capacity to do it. It's just a matter of making it happen. And again, yeah, there's lots that could be on a backhaul to make it even more economical to haul out.
All right, let's give a hand to our panel. Doug Jansen, both